Namaste and welcome to the fourth session of
Namaste.
Ayurveda Thinkathon with me, Dr. Namaste. With me, Dr. Chetali Samant, and with me, I have Suchana Seth today, who's a data scientist. So today's topic for discussion is AI, artificial intelligence, and Ayurveda. They say that change is the only constant thing in our world, and especially when it comes to the field of medicine, where inventions and innovations are constantly broadening our horizons and deepening our understanding about human health, human life, diseases, disorders, and even treatment protocols. So, with evidence-based medicine becoming need of the hour, its human intelligence may require extensions to employ external intelligence in areas where it tends to make mistakes or in areas where our intelligence might face limitations. This is exactly where sciences like data science and machine learning comes into play. Artificial intelligence has made tremendous progress in the field of medicine, wherein we see that artificial intelligence is now being included or now is an integral part of patient monitoring systems. It is an important part of assessing medical imaging and so on. Artificial intelligence is also making advances in the field of Ayurveda, where technology like machine learning is being used for research into core concepts of Ayurveda like Prakriti or concepts of diagnosis, standardizing concept of diagnosis in Ayurveda. Which is why we have our guest for today, Suchana Seth with us.
Suchana Thank you, Dr. Samant, for having me here.
Welcome, Suchana. Welcome to Ayurveda Thinkathon. Suchana is an artificial intelligence ethics expert and a data scientist. After completing her MSc in physics from Calcutta University, she worked as a theoretical physicist in the academia. However, she found her true calling in the field of data science. She has built scalable data science solutions for startups and industry research labs and holds patents in text mining and natural language processing. Her impetus to drive a positive change with the power of data led her to volunteer with organizations like DataKind, where she mentors data for good projects and advises research on IoT ethics. She is passionate about gender equality and leads data science workshops with organizations like Women Who Code. She has pursued her fellowship at the prestigious Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at the Harvard University, where she studied ways to operationalize ethical machine learning and AI. I formally welcome you, Suchana. Thank you so much for being a part of Ayurveda Thinkathon today.
Thank you, Dr. Samant. And this is a very exciting conversation that we're going to have today. I'm looking forward to it.
Same here. I mean, after many conversations that me and Suchana had about how Ayurveda and artificial intelligence is intersecting its paths, and their paths are kind of crossing, and why it has become a necessity or need of the hour for us to understand what it means. See, we are constantly interacting with artificial intelligence in our day-to-day life, and artificial intelligence is making so many advances in medicine. So it has become inevitable for us to understand it in whatever depth that we can. So Suchana, I would like to start today's session by asking you a very basic question. What exactly is artificial intelligence?
Yes, I'm so glad that we are sort of beginning at the basics here, right? So terms like big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these have become such buzzwords and they just get thrown around all the time. So let's just get a little clarity about, the definitions that we're going to use here. So artificial intelligence refers to a set of mathematical techniques and a set of computer science algorithms, and a very broad set at that, like a very broad family of technologies that basically are used to infer patterns from large amounts of data. So the idea here is that you train an algorithm based on certain underlying mathematical principles. And there are many ways of doing this. You train the algorithm to take a look at a large volume of data and then see what patterns can be learned from that data. And then you use those patterns to make some predictions about the future or to make some predictions about the system that you're interested in. So, let's just give you a simple example of an AI that is kind of ubiquitous. All of us have encountered it, even if we didn't realize that it was quote unquote AI. So, when you watch a video on YouTube will often recommend a bunch of next videos to watch. And that's something that's called a recommendation engine power these recommendations, right? And it's nothing but a form of AI. So what happens is that YouTube has loads of data about who is watching which videos, how much of the video they are watching, whether they like that video or not. And so what the AI tries to do is look at users who are liking. And then when you watch a video, the AI tries to decide who are you most familiar with. And then it tries to show you a video that users like you have watched before or liked before. And, this seems like a fairly simple, straightforward example, even a trivial example, where does even the ethics part of it sort of come in here, right? So recent investigations have shown that this recommendation engine, unless it's, designed in a very thoughtful way, has the potential to push people towards radical and extreme points of view in the videos that they watch. And so what happens is, all of us are familiar with this, going down a YouTube rabbit hole where you're just kind of watching one video after another because the recommendation engine just keeps showing it to you. And what happens is that more and more extremist opinions and extremist and inappropriate points of view, or perhaps pseudoscientific stuff is being shown because these videos are more popular, or somehow they tend to engage user reactions more, or maybe there is a lot of discussion happening in YouTube comment threads, which causes the algorithm to think that, oh, maybe other people should be watching this video as well. And so you have appropriate content which is being recommended much more than content that is actually trustworthy or reliable. And so that's where sort of that's one example of where ethics comes in what I do and why I care about these.
Hello. Looks like there is a technical glitch, and Suchna will be joining us soon. So what Suchna was saying is that artificial intelligence often intersects, and it kind of we are more influenced by it than what we know, what we know of. So artificial intelligence is influencing our thoughts, it's influencing our opinions, and it's influencing our life in a way that we still don't understand that much. We will be soon coming to the part wherein we will be discussing with Suchna as to how her work into ethical data, then how her work as a data ethics expert, and her work as into responsible machine learning comes into play when it comes to Ayurveda. See, there are many research studies which are now being done in the field of say somebody says that we have come up with a kind of a we have come up with a tool with the help of artificial intelligence which will help us kind of standardize Ayurveda diagnosis. So yes,
Okay. It's like we lost each other for a second, yes, and we are back.
Yeah, I was just explaining what you said just now, like, to our audience. You can continue, Suchna.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You can continue from.
So I think I lost the last few seconds of what you were talking about, but.
So I just said that, artificial intelligence influences our thought processes more than we can.
Systems. are essentially algorithms that learn from a lot of data, from a lot of examples.
Correct.
Right. So the other, the other quick aspect of artificial intelligence to talk about as we discuss our next intelligence, right? One is where you give the artist thing that you wanted to learn. So let's say, like a very trivial example. Let's say you give a lot of pictures of kittens and puppies, and then you teach the algorithm to distinguish between the two. So it learns to classify a new picture that it has not seen before. It learns to classify that picture as a kitten or a puppy. The other approach could be that you just give it a whole bunch of pictures of animals, and this is called an unsupervised approach, where you let the algorithm figure out and you ask how many different kinds of animals are there in these pictures, and hopefully, if you've done a good job of designing your algorithm, a couple of kinds of animals here that there are, one group of animals which all look like kittens, and another group of animals which all look like puppies, right? And this is just one example of how artificial intelligence can help in the field of image recognition and image classification. And these kind of algorithms are now being used in with medical images as well. So that's one set of applications of AI in medicine in general. With sort of the whole pipeline of drug discovery and the design of clinical trials, and then the identification of potential molecules that we could be investigating. So that's a whole other set of AI applications, right? The other set of AI applications are sort of monitoring patients and kind of trying to understand how diseases might progress in a clinical setting. So, decision support systems, and then in drug discovery, and then monitoring patients in a clinical setting. So these are just some of the ways that AI is being used, and that sort of brings us to where is specifically the intersection with Ayurveda, right? So before I kind of, before Dr. Samant sort of talks about Prakriti, I just wanted to call out that AI has a set of strengths and weaknesses which are sort of complementary to the way the human brain works, right? So for instance, artificial intelligence is very, very good in a situation where you have many variables that you're using to try to predict something, right? Where you don't really know, where you're using hundreds of variables to predict a particular system's behavior, right? Whereas the human brain, we struggle to process something like that. So we need tools to help us do that. We need some kind of math, or we need some kind of algorithm to help us analyze those things, right? So AI is typically really useful in situations like this, where you're trying to juggle a whole bunch of variables and trying to take tiny amounts of information contributed by each variable and then make it all add up to prediction.
Suchna, I kind of lost the last few lines that you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I lost.
Artificial. It's really good in settings where you are trying to model the behavior of a very complex system with a lot of moving parts, and you have you have a lot of data, and human beings are not very good at making sense of a lot of data, right? So in that sense, AI and human beings have sort of complementary strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, that's amazing, how you put it, Suchna. See, whenever we understand concepts of Ayurveda, right, it often, for me personally, it kind of, I tend to question as to if they have given characteristics of Prakriti, or, the diseases which are caused by particular dosha, or say, for example, the, symptoms or signs of diseases that, or, types of diseases mentioned in Ayurveda. I can't help but wonder as to how they must have come to that conclusion, that yes, this particular, Prakriti has this many, this kind of, these are the characteristics. And it poses a lot of challenges because Ayurveda doesn't stop at calling body dynamic, that it changes through the day, through the seasons, through the ages. It considers people even unique, like each person is unique, and that poses a lot of challenges in the practical application of Ayurveda, especially in times like today, where evidence-based medicine has become like the gold standard, for everything, or at least to make Ayurveda acceptable to the to the entire world. Or how we present ourselves depends upon how we prove ourselves in an evidence based system. So what I would ask
Absolutely.
you
So I
is,
think, AI has made, strong strides in personalized medicine as well, where the push really came from evidence-based approaches to personalized medicine, right? So, some of the papers that I looked at recently actually talked about how AI can be used to personalize individual diets for, diseases like diabetes, where you take into account not only how each individual's body responds to different diets, but also their bacteria composition, and a whole bunch of other physical parameters that might be relevant, a way of, personalizing and customizing the diet. And then you are able to follow up as well as the person goes through that diet over a period of weeks or months, how their body is responding and how these physical parameters that that you had included in your model, how are those physical parameters responding to the diet as well. So AI is actually, very, very good at being able to do this. Whereas if you look at the realities of medical practice, it's very difficult for a human being to keep, for a human doctor to keep in mind every single variation or every single data point about every patient that they see. It's just not,
absolutely,
even with the best of intentions, it's just not possible.
correct. So Suchana, with we understanding AI as an external extension of our intelligence, how exactly can we employ it for understanding Ayurveda or research in Ayurveda?
Right. So I just want to start first with one concrete example of how artificial intelligence can be used as a decision support system in medicine, right? So there's been a lot of recent work in the field of diabetic retinopathy, where you take images of the human retina and you try to train an AI algorithm. Usually these are neural networks to study that image and to understand whether this, whether this particular image shows any signs of the presence of retinopathy or not. And there has been some very recent exciting work which shows that AI can not only learn to be very, very accurate at diagnosing retinopathy in these images, but the interesting thing is that the AI is also able to articulate which areas of the image it finds most informative with regard to whether retinopathy is present or what state of retinopathy it is, or which parts of the image perhaps typically human doctors might not look at, but which still contain a lot of interesting information as to how the retinopathy might progress in this particular individual, right? So for me, this research is exciting, not just because obviously it has the potential to speed up the diagnosis of diabetic retinopathy, right? So an automated decision support system does not feel fatigued. It does not start making more mistakes the more tired it is, right? Whereas if you have a human being scanning retinopathy images day in and day out, maybe he or she would be able to look at a couple of hundred images in a day and then start getting fatigued or start making mistakes, right? So this is a way where we can kind of free up human effort for better, more interesting things, if that makes sense. Whereas maybe the drudgery, to some extent, of looking at images and maybe making a preliminary screening is kind of shifted off to an AI. And the other exciting thing in this research was also that the AI was able to articulate, that these are the areas of the image that are most interesting for us to look at, most informative for us to look at. So yeah, so that's sort of an example. Sorry. So that's sort of an example, where AI is being used as a decision support system in Western medicine, right? So now how do we translate this to the context of Ayurveda?
Ayurveda.
So we could ask whether, we can build machine learning systems, and machine learning is sort of a subset of artificial intelligence. Machine learning is a set of algorithms and mathematical techniques that form a subset of the broader umbrella term of artificial intelligence. Whether we can use certain machine learning techniques to perhaps learn or determine from data whether certain Prakriti types are present in a patient, or whether we can make a reliable way of deciding what somebody's Prakriti type is. And for me, what would be really exciting to see is the unsupervised approaches we talked about.
Correct.
Right? So there could be two approaches here. We could have a human Ayurveda expert who maybe looks at a lot of data, and then for each patient, maybe features and all of the other relevant data, and labels with a Prakriti type. Then the algorithm learns from these expert examples, and maybe it makes sure that this building, the same patient with their Prakriti type, so that we kind of fit that use the artificial intelligence algorithm that we are trying to train, right? So that could be one approach. But for me, what's potentially even more exciting is if we took the approach that approach I talked about earlier, right? Where we simply present a lot of these physical parameters that Ayurveda would consider relevant for the determination of Prakriti, and we present it to the algorithm, and we let it figure out for itself in an unsupervised way whether there are indeed distinct categories present, and whether these categories can be mapped on to the traditional definition.
So what Suchna here, she'll be joining back soon. There seems to be some technical glitch which logged her out. But what she was trying to say is that machine learning, which is a part of the larger umbrella, like artificial intelligence is not one technology, or rather a term, an umbrella term given for several different technologies, which make use of technology which allows them to sift through a large amount of data, either to find patterns or to teach a machine how to see things which we may not be able to see. So a few of the research that I have come across which are done are in the field of Prakriti. So here, when it comes to the Prakriti, machine learning is one of the tools of artificial intelligence which is very commonly used, wherein we feed a large amount of data to the machine and teach it algorithms to kind of find patterns. So that is one of the major usages of artificial intelligence that we see. Now, there are many research studies that I discussed along with Suchna Seth regarding the usage of machine learning and how the current research studies which are being done in Ayurveda, whether they are up to the mark when it comes to machine learning or not. It's a good start no matter what, but there is a lot of scope to research this and dig this further. In fact, one session may not be enough, I would say, with Suchna to kind of understand this area, because it's a vast area. And given our interactions with artificial intelligence as a medical professional, it's kind of inevitable that we start to understand this in more depth. See, because I had this basic question, regarding Prakriti, which I would want to throw to the audience also today. That, Hey, Suchna.
Okay, looks like we are back online again.
Yes.
Apologies for this.
Yeah, so I was just explaining about, machine learning and what you said again regarding, Prakriti to our, to our audience, and you can go ahead, Suchna.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Yes. So I was talking about the two different approaches, the supervised and the unsupervised approaches, right? I hope I was audible through all of that, right? Do I need to cover any of them?
I think we lost you at the end. We lost you at the last few sentences. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, for me, the unsupervised approaches are particularly exciting because, it's almost sort of a validation or a way of, sort of putting the whole Prakriti way of looking at things on, firmer footing. Because what you're really doing is you're saying, okay, if there are indeed these distinct categories that are present in the data, and the algorithm is able to spot those categories, and we can see that those categories map onto the Ayurveda definitions of Prakriti, then that's very exciting, and then because then that opens up the potential for us to also look at data from genetics or from any other branch of medicine, and then see whether some of these Prakriti types can, in some sense, right? And obviously I am not a medical professional, so I'm using these terms very, very loosely, more as directions to explore or as possible directions for future research, right? So it would be very exciting to see if these Prakriti types could in turn be connected to genetic composition or to variations in gut microbes, for example. So AI would allow us to do all of these exploratory studies, which personally I find really exciting. But that's not to say that AI as a decision support system is not valuable. On the contrary, I would say that if we can train an AI system to be a decision support system for Prakriti determination, then that would be an invaluable teaching aid, for example, for junior doctors, because that would be a that would be a way of taking expert experience and intuition from Ayurveda practitioners and sort of incorporating it into the model, so that becomes like a decision support system for junior doctors.
Absolutely. See, Suchna, when we say that, there will be a decision support system for doctors, see, Ayurveda considers practice of medicine or practice of healthcare from an Ayurveda perspective as a very personalized kind of healthcare, wherein we don't treat a system or an organ or just an image and arrive to a diagnosis, wherein a person holistically is taken into consideration or not just an image. So I feel that, there is a lot of reservations and restrictions, or people take it with a pinch of salt, I would say, when we talk about technology, Ayurveda intersecting, and often worry whether it would take away the essence of practicing Ayurveda. To put it even more simply, somebody might ask us, like, can AI replace doctors when it comes to Ayurveda? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Yes, I know. I mean, I think it's not just in the field of medicine, right? So worldwide, there is a lot of legitimate fear about AI and job automation and AI replacing, human jobs in many fields, and these fears are legitimate. But I think, when we design AI systems thoughtfully and we design them well, the reality is that their strengths and weaknesses are very complementary to the strengths and weaknesses that human beings have. So. I always think of AI systems as sort of as a decision support system, as a aid and as a help. So we can't design AI yet to offer empathy to patients. We can't design
Absolutely.
AI yet to come up with creative treatment protocols. We can't design AI yet, to replace doctors. That's not going to happen. On the contrary, I think. But on the contrary, I think, where AI really has the potential to help is already our medical systems are, overloaded, to be honest. Even in this pandemic situation, we are seeing that, doctors are doing an amazing job, but clearly they are also overwhelmed, with the amount of work that they have to do. And that's something that AI can absolutely help with, that there's a lot of drudgery involved, in diagnosis, in treatment, in sort of monitoring patients. And these are all areas where AI can help. So I don't think it's very, fruitful to sort of think in terms of AI replacing humans or humans replacing AIs, because the strengths and weaknesses are really complementary.
True. Thanks for that answer, Suchna. I mean, it's very thought-provoking. See, to a person who might be listening to this for the first time, when we discuss pure core, scientific topics or topics or technology-related topics like AI, might seem like a very dry discussion. But what they don't realize is the potential that AI has to revolutionize and make Ayurveda more approachable to the masses. In the direction in which we are going today, And by the explanation that you gave about what exactly AI means, what is its potential, and how it relates to Ayurveda, I feel that the transition is inevitable for most of us. So it was a wonderful discussion, Suchna, and we have so much to offer, I think, together in this topic, especially on topics like drug discovery and drug research, especially when it comes to the field of Ayurveda, which might be a topic for our future discussions and conversations with Suchna here. Suchna, it was a wonderful.
And I think, a couple of ideas that I would also love to explore further that we didn't have time to go into today is, to look at this difference between how an AI would perform a certain task and how a human being would perform, the same task. And there's been some very exciting research, in the last couple of years especially, which looks at this specific difference. For example, how does an AI see an image versus how does a human being see the same image? Yeah, and it turns out that there are all kinds of these exciting differences. For instance, AI tends to focus on the textures in an image, whereas a human being would typically focus on the shapes present in an image, right?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Exactly. So I think these differences are things that we can leverage, and to build these systems that are truly complementary in terms of their strengths and weaknesses.
Correct.
And that also kind of, these differences again, something that should sensitize us to the risks that are involved in embedding artificial intelligence in any socio-technical system,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Whether that's a medical system or whether that's any other socio-technical system where we are using AI. So these very differences also help us to think about what are the risks, what are the ethical challenges that we should be aware of, right? So these are all things that, I would love to explore in, our future conversations. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, where the ethical part of employing artificial intelligence in the field of medicine, I think, is a whole different topic, which is your entire area of expertise, and where you can really contribute. Correct. With health apps being thrown at us from every angle and corner, like you can do this and do that. Nobody's thinking as in terms of the ethical part of it, or whether it is breaching somebody's privacy or not. So that's a whole different topic for discussion, of course. But this was so nice. I mean, I would love to have future conversations with you, Suchna, on this topic, because there is so much for us to learn. That's something which I love about Ayurveda, that every time you try to understand a topic, you'll definitely learn something new about it, in that attempt.
Absolutely.
And studying it with the light of artificial intelligence will open so many different areas for us to understand this wonderful science in a new light. So thank you so much for being a part of today's conversation, for giving such beautiful information, much needed and much essential information. And thank you so much, Suchna. It's a privilege that I've had you today for this discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Samant. This was so much fun, and I really look forward to our future conversations. And I would love to hear, questions that the audience have for us. What ideas, we're not perhaps clear that we could maybe focus on in our next conversations. And yes, this is absolutely a, very rich, fertile set of ideas that we are exploring. So thank you for having me, and thank you for putting this together. It was a joy being here today. Thanks.
Same here, Suchna. Thank you so much for all your time and for the wonderful information you gave. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
And I thank all people who are part of the audience today, who listened to this Thinkathon session. You can go on to my YouTube channel if you missed today, and the video will be posted over there, and you can go over the video again, because there are so many things that Suchna said today which require more thought and more processing. And I would request you, all the audience, to be part of all the future conversations that we will have on this topic. And please post your comments and any questions that you have, and we would love to address those in future sessions. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Samant. Namaste.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.